Good evening. Welcome to the regular council meeting of Township of Whitewater Region on Wednesday, February 17th at 4:53 p.m. Please stand for prayer. Almighty God, we give thanks for the great blessings of Township of Whitewater Region on Wednesday, February 17th at 4:53 p.m.
Whoa!
Please stand for
Scared me.
prayer. Okay, we need that turned off.
You're good.
Okay. Is it off? Okay. Let's start again. Our prayer, please. Almighty God, we give thanks for the great blessings which we have bestowed on Canada and its citizens, including the gifts of freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy. Guide us in our deliberations as councillors and strengthen us in our awareness of our duties and responsibilities. Grant us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to preserve the blessings of this country for the benefit of all and to make good laws and wise decisions. Amen. Thank you. Can we move on to disclosure of interest? Any disclosure of interest for this evening's proceedings? Seeing none, I do understand that Councillor Mackay is a little late, so he will be here momentarily and come join us.
Sorry.
He's not coming? Okay. So now we move on to item number 4.1, public meeting of fourth quarter administrative report. And that would be Rob.
Get a motion first.
Do we need a motion for that?
To receive it.
Oh, sorry, yes. Recommendation. It's been a while since we've been at this table. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region receive the Q4 2020 administrative report for information purposes. Motion is seconder, please. Councillor Jackson and Councillor Umstead. Thank you. Now, Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Just a few quick remarks. The fourth quarter was really dominated by the budget. So I want to thank the treasurer and the entire staff team for the work on that. You'll see there's two tenders that are before council for approval. So an earlier approval allows us to get going. And our biggest capital project, Olmsted Jeffrey Lake Road, we had a public information center and hope to tender soon. So I want to just thank everybody for that. And the other one I want to say is for the pandemic, we've adapted as much as we could. So in terms of some processes that are now available online that weren't available online, and our commitment to keep our staff, our residents, and our clients safe. So the first area for presentation is community development. So Ivan Burton.
Thank you so much. So under the planning services, if you will, we reviewed one site plan control approval, and council will see at Whitewater Meadow they're progressing the expansion quite swiftly. Back in September, so Q4, the council had adopted the terms of reference for the Committee of Adjustment. That's the committee that's now reviewing minor variance and consent applications. So we've had 4 meetings since September in Q4 and considered a total of 9 applications. The final growth study came forward to council to be received and given direction to staff. And the township also received funding through OMAFRA for the Places to Grow to do the stormwater assessment, planning, and implementation of the Cobden agricultural areas. So that the RFP was issued at the last council meeting, and we have our startup meeting with the consultant tomorrow. And also, I'll be making a presentation to the Muskrat Watershed Council tomorrow night to give them an update on that project. As it relates to the building services, so in the fourth quarter, 67 building permits were issued, valued at just over $8 million. Included in that are 5 new dwellings, valued at just over $1 million, and an additional 25 septic permits. A summary of 2020 is listed there, and in the second sub bullet, it's noted the a summarization of the building permits. So 23 singles in 2020, 6 semis throughout the same year, 25 residential additions, and so on and so forth, and 75 septic permits. So a total of 293 permits were issued in 2020, valued at just shy of $20 million. And lastly, in economic development and tourism, so we have continued to issue letters of support for our local broadband companies, NRTC, Cogeco, and Whitewater Internet. Council did receive the welcome package in draft form. We are in the process of updating that and bringing that back to council in short order. And lastly, we finalized the transfer of land in Westmeath at the corner of Rapid Road, Gore Line, and if you will, Westmeath Road. So that's a transfer from Dr. Marion Latteroute for the redevelopment of a park on that property. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ivan. Any questions for Ivan? Councillor Nicholson?
Ivan, is it coming through? Ivan, I just wanted to confirm, just on the building permits, of the 293, there's nothing greater than, single detached and then commercial industrial, but there's nothing where we have more than 2 or 3 houses in like a row house situation. I don't know what that term is.
That's correct. So there are no multiples of 3 units combined in sort of one building, if you will. So what we're seeing is sort of low density, which is singles, and semi-detaches, which would be 2 units side by each.
And no indication of any interest in that at this point?
Well, I think staff have had conversations with local developers, and we may anticipate seeing those in the near future based on market demand, but no applications have been submitted at this time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I do have one. Just offhand, when you look at our total for this year past, in comparison to last year, do you remember the figure?
I don't have that number. Maybe Rob, if you would, off the top of your head, perhaps?
Oh, no, I was just wondering offhand if you did. It just seemed like that 20 million figure is quite high from what I would think. So
Yeah, I think we've seen a trend where we've seen an increase in the number of permits on an annual basis, and that is trending upwards quite a bit. So yeah, we'll see
are some of them left over from the flood or not?
We have, well, the permits that would have been issued in 2020, some of them would have been as a result of the flood, yeah. But I think for the most part, there's about maybe a dozen properties that we haven't seen much activity on that have been damaged by flood, and we are communicating with those property owners to get some activity on those properties.
Okay, thank
Thanks.
you. Seeing no other questions, we'll move on to Finance and Admin.
All right, thank you. As Rob had mentioned, the quarter was pretty well dominated by the budget. And I'd like to thank all the staff that were involved, and then obviously council had a huge role to play in that, and we got through it. And there's a list of the meetings there. So there is a more comprehensive report likely coming the next meeting where I'll tie up the whole year. So I just put a couple key highlights in here. I thought we'd at least be interested in tonight. The first one being that at the end of the year, we almost had about $700,000 of current tax arrears left on the books. That's about 5.3, so just over 5% of the current year taxes remain uncollected. The total utilities outstanding, we're about 8.9, and almost 9%, I guess, of current year utility billing. So that's down from the previous year. And then we have 21 tax sale files remaining active at the end of 2020, which is down from 26 at the beginning of the year. So, and since the calendar has rolled over into 2021, we've collected on some more of those. So other than that, I'll turn it back to the chair if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to Corporate Management and Legislative Services.
I'll start. Legislative services. The fourth quarter actually saw, well, I more or less did the year in review, so we were very, very typical for last year, considering that it was COVID and things were supposed to, well, you think things would have slowed down, but council still sat for 26 meetings. You passed 105 bylaws and heard 186 reports. And the comparison from last year is there. This year, some highlights in bylaws were backyard chickens, recreation vehicles that we are now regulating with short form wording. We have our new audio system hooked up and still tweaking, but so far so good. And legislative services, so 20 burial permits this year, 20 burial permits for Q4, 60 for the year, 17 documents commissioned in Q4 for a total of 100 commissionings in 2020, and 2 weddings, one wedding this Q4, but 2 altogether. And if there's any questions?
Any questions? Councillor Nicholson, please.
Carmen, can we do, can one of us be on Zoom in the meeting at this point yet? No. Not yet. Oh.
No, yeah.
From a
Yeah.
different location.
Yes, it will be able to happen for sure, yes.
Sorry?
Yeah, yeah, we will, it is capable to doing that, so hopefully in the near future, next meeting, 2 meetings, but it is, we're good to go. I've got the okay. Yeah.
It's coming. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing nothing else, move on to health and safety, please.
So health and safety, the committee met as required, and Dave Brenner, who retired as our chair for joint and health and safety. I just wanted to note on the building permit, I just checked the financial information return for last year. It's about an increase of about 50 with similar values. So there is an increase, and because of our geographic size and the travel, 50 permits is a lot in terms of travel and extra inspections. The local efficiency group final report, the service delivery report, was provided to council. The CAOs and the heads of council met last week to review and follow up report to council on areas that recommendations we can actually act on will be coming probably March 3rd. Council did receive a departmental work plan for each of the departments. Since I've been here in the 4 years, it was usually the CAO's work plan, and now we have a work plan that covers all departments. And what we'll do is we'll report back to council mid-year, and it's a good accountability mechanism with council, and each of the departments has a number of action items for the year. We did review our benefits plan and found that our current program is cost effective. However, we will be going out to tender later in the year for the next term. Corporate insurance renewal also occurred with a slight increase of 6,000, which is way less based on what we're hearing from other municipalities, which are seeing double-digit increases from a percentage perspective. We continue to decommission the non-potable water system in the industrial park, and we did an agreement with one of the owners regarding that. From an HR perspective, all performance appraisals were completed by the managers and their staff. And good news, we received a grant under the Seniors Community Program for $24,000 to do a needs assessment. And there's surveys, focus groups have already been undertaken, and Barnes Consulting was the successful proponent for that RFP. Because it's under $25,000, we were able to award it. And Councillors Nicholson, who chairs the task force, and Reeve Rigger, who's joined the task force, and I reviewed, and they're doing excellent work. A request for proposal was also issued for the active transportation plan. We got 6 wonderful bids, and the management team and myself and Councillor Olmsted reviewed the proposals and awarded at a cost of $20,000. So I guess, again, it's under 25, so we were able to award, and that's to WSP Canada. They undertook Petawawa's active transportation plan and also have significant trails planning as well, so a really qualified firm. And lastly, I want to always thank council to allow me to be the president of the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks and Treasurers of Ontario. I take it as, I guess, something good that the executive director decided to retire. So I was involved in the recruitment process and we found somebody. But the beauty, I guess, of COVID is I've been able to participate in all those activities virtually, so that my travel has been non-existent. So I just want to thank council again for allowing me to undertake that leadership role across the province. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Questions, please. Reeve Rigger.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, Rob, if we have a new chair yet for the Joint Health and Safety, now that Dave has retired,
So
or what that process is.
Jordan can remind me. So the employee rep, I believe, so he's been replaced. The union steward is Nathan Tubby, and the management chair, the co-manager is who is it again? Steve Hodson is the management rep, and I believe that Nathan is the co-chair. Yeah. So Nathan Tubby has replaced Dave Brenner. Yeah. I was looking to Jordan because Jordan is also a management rep on the committee, and Carmen is a rep for the office staff as well.
Councillor Nicholson, please.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. I just had one question about the active transportation proposal. I'm excited to learn more. Is it going to come to council? Like, how can we learn more about it at this point?
As part of the process, there'll be stakeholder consultations. So we noted the Active Transportation Alliance, BORCA, CNCP, the County of Renfrew from the Algonquin Trail perspective. So there will be engagement as part of that process, and then it will come back to council as part of the process. So I can share the request for proposal, which was very kind of basic, but specifically WSP's proposal, so you get a sense of the work that they're going to be doing. The good part about delegated authority is if it's on budget and meets the criteria, we can award it rather quickly and kind of speed up the process. Because what we're trying to do is get this information into the asset management plan, because the paved shoulder piece will be pretty important in terms of our linear assets. So WSP has the experience. And one point I'd point out why they got extra points is they're going to do some field work as well. So we know that from a data perspective, they'll bring that approach. So what I'll do is I'll send council their submission.
Oh, thank you. I'm just excited. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no more questions, we'll move on to Parks and Rec, please.
All right, thank you. So just a few highlights from Q4. So despite the closure of Beachburg and Westmeath Arenas just due to COVID, we did have approximately 430 hours of bookings in Cobden. We had some protocols that we had followed through Q4, but we got to a point where we had reopened the dressing rooms to a partial use, and we also started allowing spectators for the Tier 2 junior games, which was pretty awesome. Of course, that all came closing down, I guess you could say, when we had our lockdown on December 26th. So we remained diligent, kept Cobden Ice in and maintained. We had also continued our regular building maintenance and plant room checks in our two facilities that weren't open. And we had actually met with our HVAC mechanics, and we just discussed kind of, what we need to do, and this was kind of new for everybody. So it was important that we monitored our brine in those facilities, and just to make sure that as we entered the colder weather, it was monitored, and we did look after it. We were fortunate enough that we were able to complete 55% of our holiday skates before the provincial lockdown. Over in boat launches and beaches, so we did have our docks removed and stored for the end of the season. In parks and trails, we did continue our fall grass maintenance, which seemed to linger a little longer this year. I guess just we had some extra nice weather towards the end of the fall. And something that was actually interesting was we actually got to attend a bicycle-friendly community Zoom session. So this was hosted by the Ottawa Valley Cycling Transportation Alliance, and it was just kind of nice to see neighboring municipalities and kind of what they did to kind of help foster active transportation and kind of what we can learn from it. And finally, our streetlight decor. We erected our winter-themed lights in both Beachburg and Cobden.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Jordan? Councillor Nicholson, please.
I'll just make the comment from the Westmeath community area. The funding that was provided for that outdoor rink has been put well to use, and thank you so much on behalf of the community members. They're very excited, and they're all volunteering to do their part, but that couldn't have happened without that grant. So thanks, Jordan.
And of course, the lockdowns probably helps with that. People have more time, they're at home, etc. So, Councillor McLaughlin.
Yeah, just wondering, Jordan, about the banners. I was driving through Forster's Falls, and we need to either address them. I don't know if that's am I in the right department?
Are they just, I can help you out with that one. So you just need to be taken down or
I think
fixed,
need to either take them all down, because there's a lot of them that have deteriorated, broken, and I think we need to take them down, and we need to rethink what we're going to do.
Sure, yeah, we can help you out with that, no problem.
Okay, thank you. So I guess at the same time then our Canada flags would come into play. Some of them are ripped and they should come down. Is that something we should put on this year's agenda then, to put it on council's agenda to discuss how to replace these banners, or wait until they all fall down, or what are we going to do? Because it's not on this year's budget. It's not a budget item this year.
So there is a general streetscaping budget in planning and development and community development for the streetscaping stuff. So we did ask our Krugers to go in and do a check before Christmas to remove any old banners. So that would be under Ivan's team. So if you're aware of a location, just let us know so we can do that. But there is a little bit of money in there. We didn't, as part of the budget, put money for new banners, but obviously know that they only last 2 or 3 years. So there is a general budget, so we can, so Ivan's team can look at that.
Okay, just as long as it doesn't get forgotten, that's all. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. We'll move on to protective services, please.
I'll start again with the crossing guards, bylaw services and animal control. I'll make it short and sweet. As long as school is going, the crossing guards are out, but parents are being asked to drive their kids when they're able to. Staff still addressing bylaw control issues, and payment for dogs can now be made online. And I think we set up the system so that reminder notices went out, so hopefully more dog takes will start coming in. That's it.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Carmen? Seeing none, we'll move on to fire services, please. Chief Gee.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we're happy to report that the cisterns are finally now in place, and I want to thank Lane and his crew. They did come with a few challenges, and they were able to get a resolve on that. Our new mobile repeater has finally arrived, and we're in the process of putting an SOG together in order to get it out there and get it activated and get the guys using it. Our training continued to be mostly online through Teams and whichever way we could due to the COVID restrictions. I'm happy to report, though, that tonight the firefighters will be meeting in person in groups of 10 or less. Our fall recruitment program, we saw 12 new potential volunteer firefighters, of which 11 had signed up for this year. So we're still doing well in being able to recruit some new volunteers. And the total call volume for 2020 was 117 calls, which is up about 46% from the previous year. But Your Worship pointed out to me that they had a lot more calls when he was around. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the fire chief? Councillor Nicholson, please.
Chief, can you comment at all? I mentioned this before, but the closure of the training center and that potential impact on us, and
Sure.
the steps being taken to address it.
Sure, I can fill you in a little bit on what's going on right now. The Ontario Fire College was announced that they're closing effective the 1st of March, I believe, or the end of March, sometime in March. With that, the provincial fire chiefs got together in quite a few different meetings. The fact that we weren't made aware of it prior to the province deciding that they're going to close it down and sell off the real estate that's there was very upsetting to the chiefs. So there's been a series of zone meetings set up across the province, and we want to go to the fire marshal himself with a unified voice saying that this is our concerns, this is what we want to do. We're hoping that everybody in the province will be on board with this. I just received an email today from the Fire Chiefs Association, and basically they're saying that there's no way we're going to save the college. It's a done deal. It was done at the level above the fire marshal's office. So what we're going to work on now is trying to get some regional training centers set up. There's currently 20 in the province. Unfortunately, there's none in Renfrew County, and the cost for us to attend those is roughly about $2,000 per student. Compared to the fire college was $65 plus our travel back there and back, so under $150 on average. We're hoping that maybe in the near future the county will seriously look at setting up a regional training center here so we can do less travel and be able to train our people locally. That's about all I can report on right now. I know there's resolution going around municipalities that was started by the union of the employees at the fire college. That's up to council to decide whether they want to follow up on that resolution or not. I'm seriously thinking that there's no way we're going to save the college. I mean, it's pretty much been put to us that way. So I think any kind of resolution to that end of it would be fruitless.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Fire Chief. Just because I don't have the history with all this fire history in the room, if we did adopt a county-wide regional training center or something to that effect, is that a potential investment that would be required from the municipality in order to establish that? Is that a future expense that we can anticipate?
There would be some, if it was a county regional training center, the county itself, I would assume, would take the responsibility of operating it. If not, then it would be probably put on to each municipality to either participate in it or withdraw from the program. We are hoping that the funds that were there for the college, that those funds will still be there, and the province will actually subsidize some of the regional training centers with those monies available. We have zero answers from the fire marshal's office right now, so we really, I mean, they come out and said we're going to do this whole big program, online training and everything, but they've really produced nothing. So we're up in arms. We don't know where we're going with this right now.
So from this point forward, all we know is that, one, the college is probably not going to be reopened. Regional is the next avenue for us to look at, and until that gets sorted out, we can expect to spend about $2,000 per training event for our firefighters that need to go out.
Correct. And the closest training center we have here, I believe, is in Clarence Rockland. There's also Leeds and the Thousand Islands. We've sent students to both of those. It is costly for us to send them there.
Okay. Thank you, Fire Chief.
Each one was always distinct on how they operated, per se. So Leeds and Grenville are farther south. They didn't have the availability to house you, so it was motel rooms and then your meals, etc. So that's quite an expense between some and the other. Councillor Jackson.
I guess my comment is with regards to a regional training facility and the few comments that I've seen in the paper from the Renfrew County paramedic director with regards to taking over fire services in some sort of fashion. I'm not in favor of that. And I don't know that there are too many municipalities that are in favor of that. I think it's caused a little bit of a stir amongst the fire departments with those comments that were made. So I'd be very careful what we wish for, unless we wish for a county-wide fire department, which is not something that that certainly would be more costly to everybody involved, because then they'd be wanting full-time fire, and the paramedic guy would want all the fancy gadgets like he does at the county right now for paramedics.
And them gadgets aren't cheap. You paint them red. They're expensive.
That's right. So I'd be very careful what we wish for.
Yes, I agree.
If
It would be interesting to see what the county does.
If I may, Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
and you
CAO,
were in
please.
that conversation as well, the leg discussion in terms of us, the municipality to our east, there were some recommendations on fire, both from a training perspective, from a sharing resources perspective, sharing administrative, and basically the recommendation that will come is let the chiefs figure some of this out and come back. One of the things that I would say that the county can lead on is probably dispatch. So we know that the dispatch has some issues. Our umpire's not using dispatch, so that would probably be the best place to start. As somebody who stopped a regional training center in Meaford prior to coming here, they are costly. They can be a source of revenue, but would require many partners to make it work. Luckily, we have a lot of great certified trainers in our fire department, so there are different ways to achieve that, and they've adapted really well to COVID and doing online training, and so there's a bunch of we're very committed to training, and there's different ways of providing that. So I think it's a wait and see with the chiefs to look at further.
Okay, Councillor Jackson.
Just a comment, for as long as I can remember, the communication systems has been on the issue with, and it's been a county issue, and it hasn't been resolved for a number of years. I think our Reeve needs to bring that up at the county level to get it once and finalized. We have to force them to make a decision because there's too many small municipalities relying on them, and we're not getting good communication systems across the board. For as long as I can remember, it's been on the books. So I think that needs to be looked at, and I'd ask Reeve Rigger to bring that up at the county level and force the issue because, like they said, our umpire is no longer using it. I don't know what they're using, but I know we have problems getting reports. So I think it's important that we move forward with a new communication system as soon as possible.
Okay, so far it was brought out at Leg finally that the county does have 100,000 socked away for improvements, but there's no timeline at all. So maybe it's time now. Maybe Leg can push this, and you asking the right questions maybe can help us along.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Fire Chief, please, yes.
If I could just add also, with regard to the regional training centers, there's 20 of them out there right now. If we develop one here in the county, there's 21. If other counties develop them, there'll be 22, 23, 25. Who knows how many? There's not going to be much revenue coming from them because everybody's going to have their own. So is it worth it for the county to do one or not? That's something that the chiefs will have to bring forward in a report to county council, I would imagine. Thank you.
Okay. There's also other costs, hidden costs too, as time changes, and as we discussed this evening, insurance changes, WSIB changes. So if we start sending firefighters for training outside our municipality, it could be a rider on our insurance, et cetera. So there's many things to look at, and if things have to change, then we all know we're going to have to pay for it. It's a cost. So. Now, with this report, Chief, I do have one question. There is a picture here of an underground tank going in. Is that the tank in Westmeath, or is this the wreck tank?
That'll be the one. That's the picture you see there is the one that's in the industrial park.
Oh, that's in the industrial park?
Yes.
Okay. Was there a tank put in Westmeath?
Yes.
Westmeath Fire Hall? Okay.
Yep.
And is that filled and ready to go?
Behind the arena, right.
Okay. All right. I never thought to ask that question until I seen the picture, so.
Just before you go to the industrial park and visit, the tank at the industrial park requires an adjustment in the spring. So
Okay.
it's settled. So, but that'll help with the removal of the non-potable water system. So that's why that cistern was installed there. But
Yeah, it's hard to believe they needed so many wells and tanks and whatever there because you put a shovel on the ground, there's water. Like doesn't make sense, but anyway. Okay, no other questions for the chief? Thank you, Chief. Okay, we'll move on to, are we doing emergency management? We already did that.
we have been meeting nonstop, so I don't on COVID. And Carmen has a separate report on emergency management, so we could probably jump to Public Works.
Okay, we'll jump to Public Works then.
Yeah,
Thank you.
In the fourth quarter, we've seen a retirement of Dave Brenner after 8 years of service with the township. We did hire Colin Limlaw to replace his position. Sorry, and the final gravel for roads were completed on Ditburner and part of Finchley Road. Brushing was completed on Tim Road and the salt sheds were filled, and plows were equipped for winter operations. For waste management, we ground the C&D pile for winter cover, and we also made sure a joint RFP with the township of Admouth and Bromley, which JP2G was the successful component. We also had Solera do a condition assessment of our township solar panels, and the also seen a 2-year extension approved by council to Aqua. And then we also completed our field card lock system for the township. Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor Nicholson, please.
Lane, this came up at the Roma conference, and I'm just sharing it for information purposes. The report that we presented about the Blue Box program regulation review that Steve had done for us was excellent. The presentation that we saw at Roma said that the theory is great, but what's happening now is that business is finding a way to get around that program. So we're anticipating future reduction in costs, and what business is doing is they're going to biodegradable packaging, which in other municipalities means it just goes in your green bin. In this municipality, we don't have a green bin, so it's just going to go into our landfill. So it's just moving it from one box into a bag. So I'm curious. We'll have to monitor this because it has some pretty big impacts for us from a landfill perspective in the future. So I just share that with you. That's what they were talking about.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jackson.
And it's interesting you say green bin, because my understanding at the Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery Centre is in a few years they're going away from the green bin, so there will no longer be green bins. And I don't know if that's because it's a province-wide directive or if it's because of their facility, but I know they are definitely going away from green bins.
So that's the composting program.
So the composting program, absolutely.
So does that mean the township's going to have to get into the private ownership of composting containers to sell to the public, or what?
Years ago, there was a grant available to purchase those composting containers. They looked like little domes, and they used to...
and they were plastic and they broke.
Yes. I don't think they lasted very long, and plus they were too light. If the wind came along, I'm sure they blew around. But yeah, there needs to be something done for composting, that's for sure. And I agree that in the end, that's probably better than recycling. But to what extent, and if the province has kind of done away with composting grants to those facilities, then there is going to be an issue. I don't know why they're going away from green bins at Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery Centre, but I know they are. In the next 2 years, I believe.
Well, chances are they're not alone.
More fire permits.
Yeah, more fire permits, yeah. Composting fires. Councillor Nicholson?
Yeah, and it's a mess, in my opinion, because we don't want bio stuff in our landfill. It doesn't help our landfill. So in order to mitigate the impacts on the landfill, we're going to have to create a green bin program of our own, which we're supposed to be saving money on the recycling, and now we're just going to be spending money in a different spot. So to me, it means we're going to have to dig into this a little bit bigger. And I think the province is going to start to realize this, because the bigger centers are starting to raise this as a concern. So anyway, food for thought.
But if they can't make it work in the metropolises, how is it going to work in rural Ontario? Like, it's not going to work. So, okay. Councillor Olmsted.
Yeah, just a quick question, Lane, regarding salt sand. and our levels at this point. Do you see any need to go out and look for more to get through the season this year? The last couple of seasons, we've had to go and procure more during the season. Does it look like we're okay this year, or are we in good shape?
Yeah, for the salt, we do bring it in every few weeks, or based on winter. But I think a few years ago, I think it was 2019 when with a shortage. This year, there is none that we've seen.
Okay, thank you. I just have one question. The lock card system for the fuel, is that up and running now and everything that's been installed?
Yeah, it's all been installed and up and running. And we're just finishing on with the fire department, which they're just using up their quantity in Beachburg, but it's all installed and ready to go.
Okay, good. I'm glad that the card system's in play. Look after things, or hopefully look after things. Okay, thank you. Okay, now what? CAO?
That's it, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to the whole staff team for all the work. I mean, time flies when you're having fun. And you have a motion on the table to receive.
Okay, now in this report, there was a lot of pictures. Do we need any explanation on the pictures, or this just update us on what's happening at the new plant?
Yes, so Lane undertook a site visit and provided the photos of the new components of the sewage plant.
Okay.
So those are there just for your information to get a sense of what it looks like inside.
Okay, but as far as we know, everything's as far along as it should be.
Yeah, they're still going on with the same date, which is end of April so far.
Okay, so through COVID and everything, we've managed to keep a timeline. Okay, bonus. All right, so at this time, I have to call for a vote. All in favor of this report? Carried, thank you. Now we'll move on to announcements. Reeve Gear.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, and it's further in our package under correspondence regarding the 2022 Winter Games that will be coming to the county. Just putting a call out there. They are looking for volunteers and whatnot. So I just wanted to put that out there to the public, to anyone that would be willing to assist. They're just starting right now to starting to put some things in place there. So just wanted to bring that attention. That's all.
Okay, CAO, I guess, well, this will have to come from county. County is the sponsor. And then it will be officially then through our office, and we'll acknowledge it, et cetera, but right now they're looking for volunteers.
Yes,
Okay.
and the correspondence is just that they formed a committee that Reeve Emo out of Renfrew is chairing.
Okay.
But yes, the county is coordinating that. We'll be a participant, but I believe our Reeve will talk about it when we get to correspondence.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Umstead.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
I had something, but it has eluded me, so I'll say nothing at this time.
Fishing derby?
Oh, I know what it was. It was the fishing derby.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jackson. Just a very, very successful fishing derby without any fishing. The Civitan Club raised, was it 21,000?
I thought you said 12.
Right? 12,500, and all the proceeds will go to Hospice Renfrew. I wished I had won the 50-50, which was I think $2,100.
Nice. 2130.
So, and Jason Fannin won the boat and motor. So that's some of the highlights.
Township resident.
very
based in North State at
successful.
home. Okay.
Thank you to all the people that added and helped to it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jackson, please.
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Nicholson, please.
Just to plug in for the Seniors Task Force
Yes.
and the work that they're doing with Barnes Management Consulting for the needs assessment. There are surveys that are available online. And although we're encouraging seniors and businesses and and not-for-profits to fill out the survey to provide us some assessment of needs. Anyone can fill out the survey and provide your comments about it from your perspective. Maybe you're caring for a senior, or you have a friend who's a senior or whatever, so you can still provide input into the process. Those are, like I said, available online on our website. They're also available in key locations across the community. And if you know someone, or if someone can't fill it out, or maybe just wants to have a discussion over the telephone, we have volunteers that will take their input and write it into the needs assessment for them. And then we can submit those and tabulate them. The timeline is short, I think Friday, so 2 more days, and we'll be tabulating all that information after Friday. So 2 more days to try to get as many more surveys as we get in.
Can you send them to the council members? Can you send it around to us?
Yeah, is that possible?
I'll send the link, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you,
thanks.
Rob.
Councillor Jackson.
Just a question. So I was online and I took the survey, and I was rather disappointed with the question, where are you located? Forster's, like which area? Because we are trying to get at Whitewater Region, and it was very discouraging to see that, and I didn't answer, and I shut the survey down. So I don't know what happened after that. I may go back in after I calm down, but I don't know if the option is that you can say, because some people could go to different areas due to their location or their family, or somebody could live closer to Cobden but have more association with Beachburg. Somebody could, the opposite, or Westmeath or whatever. We've always been trying to encourage Whitewater Region as a whole and not individualize. So I don't know the purpose of that, and perhaps or you can find that out for us. To determine why that was there, because I think in today's day and age, people are not afraid to get in their car and drive for a certain function. So to limit it to an area because that person responded and you got more response from Cobden, so you're going to do more activities there, or more responses in Westmeath, so you're going to do activities there. I would have just liked to have seen it Whitewater Region as a whole, and then determine where those functional programs could be set up, because I don't think people are really afraid to drive anywhere. As we well know, we're a traveling community now, and we don't stay at home as much as we should, even though, people do travel as far as Renfrew and Pembroke to do activities. And I don't see that not happening in the future, and I was disappointed with that question.
So if I can, I've inputted some manual ones and seen, and so we're over 100, and I think it's just there to make sure because living in Westmeath, if you don't have a car, if I think of my mom who's dependent on my sister to get places, and having filled in some from folks in Cobden who are very specific about Cobden stuff, like the lip in front of the main door at the Ag Hall needs to be fixed. So although we're very total Whitewater Region specific, what we're getting is some kind of, in my hamlet, there was one about the slope at Annie's Gas Bar and how somebody's going to fall in a hip. So it's just to make sure, I think, to get a sense, are we getting some cross-section across the township? Because depending on mobility, age, access, family support, their access to services could be impacted. And we're seeing some I live in Cobden and here are my issues, or I live out in Lacqua Bay and I drive everywhere. So it's not a be-all, end-all. It's just giving us a sense of, are we getting a cross-section? And the task force, I think, has done a lot of work trying to hit different areas. So Gwen Bennett tried to get some Forsters Falls and Cobden, and Bev Buchanan reached out to some Beachburg folks, and Bonnie Johnson reached out to some La Paz folks. So it's not a be-all, end-all, and it's not specific to each area, but we are hearing some very specific, because some people, that's their radius, right? So it won't impact the strategies. It just gives us a sense to make sure we got some broad participation. And there's an other, and some people skip the category and it doesn't really matter. So we're seeing in some questions, people might not have feedback on transportation, but might want to comment on housing. So it's really just going to collate that data.
Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I agree that there are some that are very specific, but without asking that question, that specific question. You could have still gathered the other information without asking that specific question.
Councillor Nicholson.
I'll just also share that we've also done 3 focus groups. And the focus groups weren't as broadly advertised simply because we didn't have as many spots as we would have liked to have had, because we did them all via Zoom, not your traditional, everybody go to the arena and have 100 people in the room to share some thoughts. So we had 26 participants over 3 sessions, and it was excellent. Each session we purposely picked people from across the community, right? And to hear that cross section and not just get zeroed in on, let's just talk about Cobden issues or let's just talk about one area. It was, what are the needs across? Can we get a feeling for what they are? And that helps strategy. So it's really about forming strategy to come back to council with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Councillor Mackay. We are at this point in our agenda of announcements. Would you have any announcements at this time?
This time.
Okay, thank you. I have no announcements at this time, so, Councillor Olmsted, please.
Yeah, I just want to officially announce that I'm passing the late torch on to Councillor Mackay. Thank you. I'm no longer going to be the late one, Dave.
Okay. Seeing no more confusion, we'll move on to item 6.1, site plan control. CIO, what am I doing with all these? I'm reading all these recommendations. Yes, I am.
Yes.
Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve a site plan agreement with Schneider's Equipment Services to permit the development of part of Lot 7, Westmeath Concession B, EML, east of Muskrat Lake, Industrial Park Road, subject to final approval for the planner /EDO. Motion and seconder, please. Councillor McLaughlin, seconded by Councillor Nicholson. Thank you. And this goes to, who does it go to? Ivan, sorry.
Thank you so much. So what's before council now is a site plan application that was submitted by Ruben Schneiders for Schneider's Equipment Services. They provide essentially large truck, like a large vehicle commercial garage. Ruben purchased the property back in 2016 at the corner of Cemetery Road and Industrial Park Road, and is now looking to develop it this coming spring. So the application was submitted in October, and additional information was submitted in December, and we're now in February looking for approvals. So the proposal will comprise of a commercial garage and also sort of a contractor's yard where large vehicles may be stored occasionally. The main building will have just shy of 20,000 square feet with numerous garage bays, a lobby area, and office space. There'll be a primary customer entrance along Industrial Park Road leading to 19 customer parking spaces. A second entrance further down Industrial Park Road, which will provide access to a fenced yard and provide for 14 truck parking spaces. And a third entrance on Cemetery Road, also leading to that fenced yard at the back, and also leading to 2 loading bays. The plan, which demonstrates these different parking areas, is shown on attachment number 1 of the report. There'll be a linear stormwater management pond along the west property line, and also a large grassed area at the corner, essentially corner of Industrial Park and Cemetery Road, and that'll serve as landscaping and septic tank and weeping bed area. So as noted, Mr. Schneider purchased the property back in 2016. As part of that purchase of property, the township did retain an easement for what is a water service that runs from Cemetery Road to the municipal property just south of Ruben's property, which essentially water that non-potable, which is a water line that runs from the main to the non-potable water plant on Industrial Park Road. So as part of the decommissioning of that water system, that water line is no longer required, and the township is prepared to take the necessary steps to cap that water line released the easement back to Ruben, and Ruben is committed to removing the water line during his redevelopment. So that's one component of the development as well. So maybe just to finalize here is the development will comply with the PPS, the official plan of the County of Renfrew. These lands are intended for commercial and industrial development. They are of sufficient size to provide for this and also to meet the demands for this type of market. As noted in the recommendation, we are requesting that Council pass the motion subject to the final approval by myself, and that is primarily on the basis that there are minor modifications that need to be made to the plan, and specifically to the entrance widths. So the widths are shown very wide, and Ruben and I have agreed essentially to reduce the widths to make them more appropriate for this type of development. So while he could not get me that revised plan before tonight's meeting, he is prepared to make those changes. We would amend the agreement with that new plan number and then move forward with its execution and registration on title. So this is presented to Council for your consideration. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Thanks.
Okay, questions? I do have one. That water line that has to be capped, does that fall under our jurisdiction, or do we tender that?
As I understand it, and I might direct us to Lane, maybe I'll just direct it to Lane for response.
Thank you, Ivan. Yeah, so we will be hiring a contractor, but we'll also be contacting the owner of the water line to disconnect it and have the agreement tore up, I guess, or and that way. And we're thinking about probably be about springtime when that's done.
Okay, but when we talk about capping that, are you going back to the line to cap it, or are you going to cap it on our side of the roadway?
It'll be capped on Cemetery Road.
Okay, no, that's a good idea, because you never want to know what's going to happen in the future. So it's nice to have that line there and not have to reinvent a new T if needed. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. I think one of the key things too is Ruben's, committed to removing the line at his cost that runs through his property. So again, the township will not have to be responsible for that cost.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we'll move on to 6.2, Parks and Rec. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region award tender 2021-05 to Mackenzie Motors Limited for the purchase of a 2021 Chevrolet Silverado half-ton truck at a cost of $42,872.00, including HST. Motion and seconder, please. Councillor Nicholson and Reeve Regier. And this goes to Lane. Jordan, sorry.
And no worries, that's fine. Thank you. So this should be a rather quick report. So yes, we did put a tender out for the purchase of a 4x4 half-ton truck for the Parks and Recreation fleet. We did receive 2 quotes. We received one from Blue Mountain Chrysler and the other from Mackenzie Motors. And as you can see from the report, we are recommending that we do purchase the vehicle from Mackenzie, as it is the lower tender that came in. From a financial implication, so under the 2021 capital budget, $40,000 was approved from recreation reserves for the purchase, and you can see here what the total cost is, just under $43,000, and when we minus our HST rebate, it comes under budget at $38,607.79. So upon approval of council, we'd like to award this to the successful bidder, and we'd like to move forward with the purchase of a truck. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions at this time? Councillor McLaughlin, please.
Yeah, I think I've asked this question to Rob as well. I realize you need the truck for 3 months. That's what I understand for the students. What are we going to do with it after that?
Yeah, so the truck will be used from April till late fall. So we will be operating in our park section. We'll also be using it for our arenas. Right now we have a lot of staff that are traveling between arenas in their personal vehicles, and we'd like to divvy that up and make sure that we have adequate resources at different facilities so that they can move things or go to the hardware store, those type of things. So the vehicle will be used all year round, and when we're finished with parks, it'll go to the arenas.
Okay, thank you.
If I can add, because I know this was a sub question last time. The 2 extra vehicles and that have been surplused in fire have gone on to Gov Deals. So the old pickup truck that was used for forestry, that was previously the chief's truck, and the red truck that I believe was the chief's other truck. So those 2 have gone to Gov Deals. So just in terms of, I know that was a question in terms of them. So they have been surplused. I don't think they've closed yet, but they're being surplused.
Okay, Councillor Olmsted, did you have a question? No, you didn't. Councillor Mackay.
Didn't we have a brand new truck for Parks and Rec already?
Yeah, we purchased one in 2018.
Can't use that?
We are currently using, yeah. So what's happening is that we're short in being able to deploy staff. So we've actually been given second-hand vehicles from other departments, essentially, for our second vehicle. And so we're just at a point now where we need a newer vehicle that's in better shape and it's not leaving us stranded.
If I can, I gave this answer during the budget, but I'll repeat it. So council has added, so we have 3 full-time parks arena staff that cut the grass and maintain the parks and check the boat launches and also check playground equipment. Plus you've decided to have 3 summer park students to maintain beaches. So that's 6 people that have to deal with the entirety of the township and its large geographic area. So Jordan has operationally looked at 2 crews so that we can keep up with all the beaches, all the parks, all the grass cutting, all the boat launches. So the question is, you don't need a truck if you reduce the level of service. And I'll keep repeating that message.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none? All in favor? Carried, thank you. And then we move on to 6.3, recommendation that the Council of Township of Whitewater Region approve the award of tender 2021-01 to ISN Canada Group Holdings, Inc. for the purchase of a set of 4 2021 Rotary Lift Flex 419 at a cost of $59,590.66, inclusive of non-refundable HST. Motion and a seconder, please. Councillor Jackson and Councillor McLaughlin. And this goes to Lane.
Thank you. The tender was issued on January 7th, which closed on January 10th, which received 8 bids, ranging from 61,000 to 75,000. With the three lowest bids did not meet minimum specifications that were waterproof panels, the warranty period, and optional forklift afters. With the bid from ISN Canada Group met or exceeded the specifications and has the longest warranty of 48 months. The capital budget did include $60,000 for this project, which was I will be funded from the capital reinvestment reserve. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councillor McLaughlin?
Lane, I take this it'll be in the set up in the garage. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
And will it take up one of the bays?
It will, but with this, they're mobile, so they can move around or be stored when not in use. So it's not a dedicated lift.
So I guess you're answering my question. So in the wintertime, if we don't need it, the trucks will be able to still we'll be able to fill the trucks, keep our bays full of trucks
That is correct.
during the winter and keep them out of the snow?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nicholson?
I'm just curious, Lane, just from a personal perspective, the company that we've selected offered 2 bids for the same price, but 2 different model numbers. Just so I know it's not a typo, can you offer any context?
Yeah, that is correct. So there's 2 bid provided, the same. The one selected is a newer model, which is in stock. So they provide the same price as the older one.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Olmsted?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Lane. This unit was purchased so they could actually do work in the field as well. So if they had a breakdown in the field, that these mobile units would allow him to service the vehicle while he's on the side of the road, or so to avoid toll charges and that kind of thing, right?
These wouldn't be to the field itself, but could be out in the parking lot, for example, if it wasn't room. But it wouldn't be brought to the field, no.
Okay, it would not brought it to the field?
No.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, call for a vote. All in favor? Carried, thank you. 6.4, emergency management. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve emergency management related appointments and terms of reference for the Emergency Management Program Committee and Control Group. Motion and a seconder, please. Councillor Mackay and Reeve Regier. And this goes to the CAO. Or Carmen.
Goes to the clerk CMC.
Just a background, well, I guess, okay, so in January 2019, we passed the emergency management program. It's recommended that the program committee differ from the control group as they play 2 different roles. So we decided to put together terms of reference for these committees, which includes the memberships and the responsibilities. We don't have them on board, but they're in your packages. So the emergency program committee is the guide to oversee in development and implementation of the emergency management program. So they get together and they're the group that puts together the plan. The members will include a chair, so that would be the council's lead of protective and services, the mayor, the CMC, the alternate, the emergency information officer, the chief administrative officer, and a fire chief. And then for the control group, which is a separate committee, that's the group that's responsible for the direction and control of the overall emergency response. For that one, we have decided to go with the IMS standardized organizational structure. And the reason why we use that is because out of Ontario, 30 municipalities, or 30, I shouldn't say municipalities, sorry, emergency response organizations have put together this standardized level of response so that it's kind of standard for everybody understands it. So we classified our members through that. And the organizational schedule is in the terms of reference, so we can look at that. It's included in your package. Next steps, once the membership is approved, the Emergency Program Committee will meet to review the emergency plan. Thank you. That's it. Any questions? Please no.
I think she's in a hurry to get out of here.
I'm already sweating.
Seeing no questions, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please. Carried, thank you. Now we'll move on to 6.5.
You could have had something planned here, I'm sure.
We should all have 2 questions.
Yeah, there you go.
We're also happy to be back. 6.5, tender results for sale of land. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region direct staff to proceed with the direct negotiation with an abutting landowner for the sale of all or part of the vacant lands in the industrial park prescribed as Parts 1 and 2 on Plan 49R-18964 as a lot addition for agricultural purposes, given that no bids were received following the issuance of a public tender. Motion and seconder, please. Councillor Nicholson and Councillor McLaughlin. And this goes to CAO?
So this parcel was optioned by Glasshouse Botanics when they joined the industrial park, but is not needed for their purpose. So we came late last year to get direction from council to put out a public tender. We didn't get any bids. The minimum bid was $75,500 based on recent transactions in the industrial park. So we didn't get any bids, but we did hear from the nearby farmer who is interested in all or part of the lands. So I'm reporting out that we didn't get any successful bids for the tender. However, we do have interest in the parcel, and there is a closed item to discuss aspects of that negotiation. But this is just direction to proceed with that direct negotiation for all or part of the lands.
Okay, any questions? Councillor Mackay.
How much land are we talking here?
It's just under 10 acres, 9.44 acres.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor McLaughlin.
I think there's a typo. It says the former Township of Whitewater Region, if you look under background.
Did I read that?
No.
Westmeath, yeah, correct,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, it should be the form Westmeath. I intended to tell you before.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so documented. Okay, any other questions? Councillor Nicholson.
I'll throw this one at Ivan. Just if it's industrial lands and there's a potential for it to go to agricultural, is there any impacts or any considerations there?
I would just say that, the original intended purpose of the lots were for industrial purposes. The ultimate impact would be to remove employment lands from the township, so potential lands that could serve for employment, and could potentially affect the tax base to some extent if it's moved from agricultural to industrial. But I mean, the land has to be developed, for that to occur, right? So we have no proposals for purchase. So at this stage, it's kind of we've positioned the land for sale and nobody's purchased it, so it stays in our ownership and it has no real value to us at this point. So yeah.
The only thing I would add is the official plan designation is rural. So yes, it's zoned as industrial, and we have sold abutting lands to the abutting farmer and previously. So yes, it's industrial land, but as Ivan said, if it's of no use to anybody because of its location, it's unserviced, then we don't get any taxes on it. And its current assessed value is $37,000, and we're not getting any taxes on it. So just trying to find it. We did a public tender. It was advertised in the Ottawa Valley Business News through Bidingo and other means, and obviously there's no interest at this time.
Councillor Mackay.
I don't know if we should let land go that's already in the park. Couldn't we just rent it? I mean, if it's farmland, they could use it. And then when somebody comes and make an offer, you say, well, you have to wait till this crop is off, and that way you don't lose important industrial land that we could need.
I mean, it's a good point. It's the only vacant piece left in the industrial park. The issue is, my understanding is it's tilled at the back, despite the fact that we own it. And that the front part of it is rather kind of rocky, so might not be the best parcel, which is likely why it's the one that's remaining.
May not be buildable?
I mean, there's always slab on grade. The planner tells me there's a will, there's a way. But yes, there's no harm in keeping it in our ownership, which provides you with options down the road. But there's also the ability potentially to sell part of the property and keep the part that's fronting on the road and sell that. So you can probably do both, which is kind of what the recommendation is recommending, is to sell all or part.
Okay, Councillor McLaughlin.
Yeah, my question was very much like Councillor Mackay's. If it's the only piece of property that we have left in the industrial park, because in the last 8 years, we've sold quite a few parcels of land there. So I'm kind of in favor of keeping it. But if somebody's already tilling our land, I think there needs to be some kind of a token.
Councillor Olmsted.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with both councillors. I'm actually against the motion. And I guess all I can say is I think this item or a similar item does come in closed. Or
It does. However, if you want to keep the land, which I'm good with, and I think the planner is probably okay with too, you would just vote this down.
Right.
And then we could discuss the matter in close, but if you're not selling it, I don't know what
Right.
we would negotiate in closed.
Right. I'll reserve the rest of my comments for a closed session then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But
So-
on the lease part, I guess we could discuss whether part of the lands could be leased in closed session. Yep.
So then, do we let this ride and go ahead into closed to do that, or do we vote to acknowledge what the recommendation is now and then go into closed?
I'd suggest if you think we should be keeping this land because it's the only parcel we have, as I mentioned, what we would likely do is market it another way. So we tried the public tender part and it didn't work. And our sale of land policy allows to go through a real estate agent as an example. So we would market it or keep it and look at that as an option. So what I would do is if you don't favor negotiating, just vote it down. It'll be rejected, which means the public tender had no bids. And then I would respond to the abutting landowner of council's decision. And that has to be done in open. So if that's where council wants to go, that's totally fine.
So could we visit the rental end of it at a later date?
We have a closed item on negotiation, so we could speak to the terms of that negotiation under closed.
Okay. So now I've lost track. Are we having a vote or not? Yes. We are having a vote on the motion on the table.
Yeah, you just have to make sure to call all against
Okay.
as well on this one.
Do we want a recorded vote on this? Is this possible or not at this time?
You're not obligated to have a
Not
recorded
obligated
vote.
to have-
Yeah, so
okay.
majority either way would work.
Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, yay. All in favor of nay with the motion on the table? Okay. Thank you. Carried? Carried, nay.
It's healthy.
Okay. On to 6.6, joint job evaluation. That the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve the award of the joint job evaluation and pay equity project to Cornerstones Management Solutions Limited at a cost of $18,725 plus non-refundable HST. Motion and a seconder, please. Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Mackay. And this goes to Rob?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've worked hard on this since I've been here. The pay equity process started in 2016, and we're obligated under pay equity legislation to maintain our pay equity plan, and that is essentially the grid. We're working as we try and as a strategic objective to work closely with other municipalities. We're working with Bonnechere Valley, Laurentian Valley, McNabb Braeside, and Greater Madawaska on this project. We're very fortunate that the former director of HR at the county assisted us in the job evaluation process prior. What this will do, though, is with the other municipalities have the same the same tool that we already have, but we'll do that process. But then we'll also train us so that when we have a new job or something that needs to be evaluated, other partners within the 5 groups could evaluate our jobs and us vice versa. So we wouldn't be evaluating our own, we would be working with others. And as part of this as well, there's a competitive market analysis that typically comes with this. We did not do that with our other process. So the firm is asking for us to identify municipalities, and in speaking with them for our purposes, we should look at our population and our neighbors, but we should also look at scope of service. So for instance, if we compare to Adamiston Bromley, where yes, we both plow roads and have a landfill, but they don't have the scope of service in terms of a lot of the other things we do. And what they recommend is municipalities kind of in the similar scope. So I presented you a list of municipalities to compare us to. What happens with that data is they come back and look for, so there's a lot of municipalities there, they're looking for comparators. And based on that, and we were talking about this with the other partners in the municipality, when it comes back, then council will decide where you want to be percentile-wise. So in some areas, municipalities want to be at the 50th percentile, i.e. right in the middle, or they want to be at the 25th percentile, so you don't want to be the one paying the most, or some want to be at the 95th percentile. I would say for us, we probably want to be somewhere in the middle. I should first point out that this process is to kind of complete the cleanup of this kind of compensation job evaluation process, give us the tools going forward. I don't anticipate that there'll be major changes. The goal of this is not to give myself a raise. I'll just say that publicly in case people are saying it. That's not the goal. The goal is to work with our colleagues to set us up from a training perspective and just complete the work that's been ongoing for 5 years. So if there's any questions or comments on the comparators, I've tried to note them in terms of population, dwelling size, and also scope of service. A good example would be Greater Madawaska. That's actually, so the Calabogie area that is part of the 5 municipalities. We don't have similar size municipalities, although we're both large. They have a lot of highways and county roads, so they don't have as many serviced lane kilometers. They don't have as many dwellings, but they do match us up in terms of seasonality, tourism. They also have a planner and a chief building official, so they match up to us in certain areas. So the beauty of having a long list is as long as the consultant can go get 5, 6, 7 comparators, then we'll get good data to council to make some decisions going forward. So in terms of next steps, the council leads in each of the areas will be provided the job descriptions for any feedback you might have. If there's any questions or comments, they'll be passed along to myself, the mayor, and the Reeve, who under the organizational structure policy review job evaluation requests. What we'll do is just pass that on to the consultant, so we'll do a review as well, but any comments from the council leads will be passed along to the consultant. They're going to look at all that data and come back to us with some recommendations end of April. So the goal is to come back to council in closed session on May 5th on any implications and recommendations from the consultant. Then they'll go back and do their final report, which will come back to council in closed session again on June 2nd, and then we'll update the policy, so that would be the grid, the org chart, anything of that nature on June 16th. So each member of council in your respective areas would be involved, but then the mayor and I and the Reeve would be involved in terms of our responsibilities under the current policy. So any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
I do. I have one question. And this came to my mind when I was reading this and went back to one of our meetings. Is this going to create a double grid system, one in-house and one outside of the house interfering? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? The lay group will have a system, we'll have a system. This is going to eliminate our in-house system and we will all go to the leg program?
No, so each municipality is being evaluated separately. For instance, Bonnechere Valley is looking at, say, Bancroft, because Bancroft is a very similar, so they might not even have the same comparators. What we'll all do is have the Templeman tool, and we'll be trained on the same tool. I'm assuming that the 5 municipalities will have each other in their comparator groups, but it's really just, we're doing the process together, but each of our grids are separate. Each of our jobs are separate. Each of the decisions of council of where you want to be in terms of where your grid starts and ends is the responsibility. So it's really just, as municipal professionals, getting trained together using the same tool. So there's no cross there.
Okay. Councillor Jackson.
I guess is there, the only one that is outside of our area that I can, is Carlton Place. Mississippi Mills, they're both in Lanark Township. Is there a reason why we threw those in as well?
We threw Mississippi Mills in because it's really hard to find water, wastewater, multiple hamlets, lots of roads, rural, urban. Mississippi Mills has Pakenham and Almont as two centers, and then
And
they
rural
have
and urban.
and services.
But Carlton Place?
And Carlton Place is like abutting Mississippi Mills, so they're
It's drastically different.
yeah, but it's they have the same scope of service, but not the rural aspect. So they could technically, we could drop Carlton Place and Mississippi Mills. Mississippi
Well,
Mills.
Mississippi Mills isn't bad. I agree that they have that mixture. Armprior is definitely, again, just
Scope of service.
scope of service, and it's very urban.
Yeah.
Doesn't have any rural component to it at all. Bonnechere Valley certainly is a comparative, not with population or private dwellings or size or whatever, but definitely scope of service and the rural urban. I like the rural urban combination because it does give a better outlook on us. Pembroke as well. Again, they're all urban. Town of Renfrew is all urban. Petawawa has the mixture, but Petawawa is kind of
Large.
an anomaly because of the base, and part of that population is gathered into the town of Petawawa, even though they're not in the town of Petawawa. It's a weird and wonky situation with how the taxes are done up there. They certainly roll in the dough, and it's hard to compare them with us, even though they do have a rural and urban, and their urban is getting larger. Certainly wasn't that large 10 years ago. I don't know, but definitely Carlton Place, Armprior, Renfrew, and Pembroke, I would exclude.
Yeah, so we can exclude whoever. The issue is if they're running a public works department with, so there's certain aspects of their services that might be relevant, not everything. So like planning and building is an interesting one where we can't compare ourselves to say Horton and Admiston, but Horton and Admiston do have rural roads. So on some stuff, so they're not in the mix.
Yeah, and neither is
so it's-
Admist and Bromley. Like, I agree with
So
those
it's
being
hard.
excluded.
Yeah.
I just don't agree with the only urban areas. And frankly, as we know, I think town of Renfrew and city of Pembroke don't pay their employees as much, and for some aspects, and pay their employees more in other positions.
Yeah.
But it is a mix, but I think because they're too urban, I would like to suggest that we exclude them. I think we need to have that good rural and urban mix, because it does have all of the same services as what we have, all of the other ones that have the rural and urban mix.
So Armprior, Carlton Place, and Pembroke was the ones
Town of Renfrew and Petawawa. Well, Petawawa can stay. It's just it's a weird comparison.
Yeah. So the interesting part with, like, the other part is Madawaska Valley. So Sean and I met with the CAO and the treasurer and said, hey, what could we work on? And turns out the only thing we had in common was our financial system and our population size.
Yeah.
Other than that, so yes, they're a rural place with some little hamlets. I don't even know if they would
They
be
have very little hamlets.
Braeside, I guess, and but then no level of service, so it's hard. But I think
And which one's Greater Madawaska Valley? Which one's Barry's Bay? Which one's Calabogie?
this one's Calabogie. Greater is Calabogie, and Madawaska Valley is Barry's Bay. So Barry's Bay does have water meters, I believe.
But Calabogie doesn't.
Calabogie doesn't, but then they have a strong tourism industry that has a bearing here and do a lot from a planning building perspective.
Right.
Yeah. So I think Armpire, Crown Place, and Pembroke are good. The other thing the consultant reminded us is, where have you taken people from? And which has been, to be honest,
Renfrew and
looking
Pembroke.
at Carmen and Jordan and Kim, Pembroke, and Renfrew. So the issue here is, because this is the market analysis, you'll decide where you want to end up. But who are we taking people from, and who are we losing people to? So we've lost people to Horton, which is not on this list, so maybe they should be added on, despite their size and their population and lack of service. But we have taken mostly from Pembroke and Renfrew.
I think Horton was an anomaly with regards to losing staff there. But when it all comes down to it, and the comparisons come in, and the recommendation comes in with regards to the salary, it's still up to council to make those decisions on what they want to do. So I think by excluding the ones that I suggested and leaving in the other ones, I think we'll be fine. Yeah. I think that will be good. And then certainly then we can see how we roll out. But I just think they're just so drastically different. I know that everybody, I mean, we could say Ottawa compares too, right? Because they have the scope of service, they have all the little hamlets. If we want to go to that extreme, we can go to that extreme. So this is why I'm saying I'd like to focus in a little bit tighter.
The eight I think is actually a good, so it'd be
Yeah, I
8
think so
plus
too.
us. So I just gave you a bigger list to have you. So if everybody else is comfortable with that, we would drop Armpire, Carm Place, Pembroke, and Renfrew, but keep in Petawawa, Mississippi Mills.
Yes.
Which would, because again, you have Bonnechere Valley at 3,000 population and Madawaska Valley at Deep River at 4,000 population. We have smaller places, so we would still get a good big and small scope of service, tourism, seasonal mix there. So that's great if everybody's okay with that, and then I'll let the consultants know.
And I think council needs to realize that the union is separate from this. This does not include union positions.
Are we the only one in the group with the union members?
No.
On this
Bonnechere-
list? On this list?
Bonnechere Valley, I know for sure, is going through union negotiations. Others may as well, not Laurentian Valley. I'm not
has
sure about
union.
McNabb Braeside.
Yeah, I don't know.
And again, to your original question, Mr. Mayor, some have library in, some have fire out.
Yep.
There's a vast mix between the partners, but we would just be looking at what we have on our grid.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Do we want a 5-minute break now? Councillor McLaughlin, yes? Yes. Okay, we'll take 5 minutes. Can you? Okay, thank you. Now we move on to 7.2. That's where we're moving to next, no? I missed one. I missed 6.
No, 7.1.
General value. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I think I'm missing. I had a page out of turn. That's what happened. Okay, we're on 7.1. Notice of motion. And the first one will be, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region direct staff to review the Whitewater Region agreement with CRINS to confirm if this arrangement best supports Whitewater Region radio communications development and make recommendations back to Council. Motion and seconder, please. Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Mackay. And this goes to the mover, which is Councillor Nicholson.
Good. Okay. So, short of it, CRINS, which is the Canadian Radio Communications Information and Notification Service, essentially the people who help put the radio towers up. The township's used it twice, once to do the one in Cobden off of Councillor Armstead's property, and once to do a Whitewater internet tower in Beachburg. So we've used it twice. We first signed up for it as a township in 2015 in a previous attempt that CRINS was shopping around for municipalities to join its organization. So we know that the future has more towers coming to Renfrew County, to Eastern Ontario. We don't know if they'll come to Whitewater, but we know there's more towers are going to come as 5G unrolls and there's more 4G put out. Plus, we know that we are going to need towers, or we'd like to have towers for two-way communication for our firefighting department. So towers are going to be something we're going to have to deal with in the future. The experience we had putting up the tower for Whitewater Internet had a lot of problems. It took months, literally extra months, to get feedback from CRINS about the tower that Whitewater Internet was putting up. Specifically, Ivan had to get on the phone 2 or 3 times before they returned a call to Ivan. The application fee was pretty significant, and I put it in there, $2,600. $1,000 of it comes back to Whitewater to cover our internal costs. $1,600 stays with CRINS to fund its costs. That's regardless of the size of the tower or the purpose of the tower. So it might have made sense when we put up the Rogers Tower, maybe didn't make sense for the little tower in Beachburg. So what it's doing is it's stifling the little users for wanting to try to do it, because the process is very complex and costly, and the bigger users, they don't blink. So what I was hoping to do was to ask Ivan, as the key staff lead in this area, if he could look at it and make a recommendation back, if this was an agreement we wanted to do, or if it's the stuff that CRINS does, essentially the public goes out to the public and asks for feedback based on how high it is and what radio frequency it is, the impact of the community, whether or not he could do that. Ivan's not here to make any extra comment, but Renfrew is not a member of CRINS, and Ivan did this function when he was in Renfrew. So it is something that I believe is worthwhile for us to investigate and get feedback from the staff on. That's my comments, Mayor.
Okay, any questions for Councillor Nicholson? Councillor Olmsted.
Yeah, just had my experience going through the last round, which ultimately ended up being Rogers placing a tower. I would say Ivan could probably do that work very, very easily. At the time, of course, we didn't have a planner, but most of the information I saw that came back probably could be done in a matter of a few hours with a decent planner versus, I think we waited like 9 months, 6 or 9 months to get some information back. So I think it's a real good move. Thank you.
Councillor Mackay.
I just make a comment on that tower in Beachburg. It's really good. My internet's perfect now, and although I didn't read my iPad today, it is good.
And you decorated it for Christmas. You did a good job. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we move on to Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region directs staff to review the possibility of a reuse program as part of our landfill operations and report back to Council. Motion and a seconder, please. Councillor Nicholson, Councillor Mackay. Back to Councillor Nicholson, please.
Okay, so this was some feedback from the community, and it really comes back to minimizing landfill use or filling up our landfill unnecessarily. When you look at the 3 R's in a recycling program, reduce, recycle, and reuse, we have an excellent reduce initiative that we're trying to work with the province in terms of reducing the blue box by having the businesses that fill it pay for it. We have an excellent recycling program with curbside at each one of our homes that helps keeps things out of our landfill, but we don't have a reuse effort. Now you'll see 2 examples that we're familiar with. One is at Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery Center. They have a reuse center that they are funded with tax dollars. And another example might be the one at McDonald's Corner in Lanark, where it's a not-for-profit volunteer group that runs the reuse center. I think it's funded with municipal property, but the actual operation of it is funded by volunteers, filled with volunteers. So what this does is just another initiative in the recycling concept or the program in order to keep the landfill full of only the things that have to go to the landfill. I'm not suggesting that we want to adopt it, but I think we'd like staff to take a look at it, see if it's economically feasible, if it might be something we want to consider for our landfill. That's it, Mayor.
Okay, questions? None? Okay. I do. It would be nice to get some information back on how this runs without causing any grief to the municipalities. One of them run by volunteers, the other one is in our neighboring municipality. I just wonder if we should look into this a little further. The CAO is making notes to do so. Is that what he's doing?
Yeah, and Steve would work on this report and bring examples. I know
Yep.
Smiths Falls is another one that has one off-site, but and then Steve and Lane would bring back a report.
Yeah, this isn't a motion to create it, it's a motion
No.
to investigate it.
Yes, totally investigate. Yes, I understand. Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. .3, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region directs staff to review options to illuminate the intersections of Forsters Falls Road and Zine Line, Gore Line and Westmeath Road, La Passe Road and Lookout Road, as well as any other priority intersections as part of the street lighting LED conversion project and in partnership with the funding from county where required, and make recommendations back to council. Motion and a seconder, please. Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Jackson. And this goes back to Councillor Neal.
Okay, again, recommendations that I've received from residents and discussions that we've had around the table. And I acknowledge that we may need to modify this motion. Rob has counseled me with this. But there are 3 areas I'm aware of that are underlit. One of them is obviously a county responsible intersection of La Passe Road and Lookout Road. The one in Westmeath, Gore Line and Westmeath Road is, I think, ours because it's within the village limits, or is it county?
It's county.
It's not the dark spot is part of the regular street lighting, not truly intersection lighting.
So it's ours.
So it would be part of the street light network in Westmeath, and they'd be looking at that anyway as part of the LED project.
And then Foresters Falls and Zion Line, I think, is a combination between us and county, right? So I acknowledge the motion may not articulate exactly what we're trying to achieve, nor will I was aware if you might have other areas that you wanted to add to the list. But I think we want to consider this. I put a bunch of feedback in there. You saw with our construction permits and our investment in the community, the number of people living here and the people using the roads is increasing. The seasonal people, residents aren't just seasonal anymore. They're extending their stays throughout the year just because of the COVID restrictions on travel. So we're seeing a lot more people at these intersections and wanting to make, turns in the middle of the night. I'd like us to take a look to see whether or not it's it's something we want to invest in. If county doesn't want to do Lookout in La Paz, maybe we should consider it. Maybe that's an investment we need to make in it, or pressure them a little bit more hard than just doing a traffic count at that intersection. So those are the kinds of things I'm trying to encourage. Is again, staff review. I'm not proposing the lights, but for staff to come back and really see if there's a way for us to achieve it in these three areas, plus any you might want to add. Thanks,
Okay,
Mayor.
thank you. Councillor Mackay.
Lookout Road and La Paz Road, you can see all the way on that road. Like, I'm not trying to say it's maybe a good idea, but that's the field of vision is perfect. No matter which way you're going, it's all flat fields. You can see it. So if we have to fight for some, let's try something a little more dangerous.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Jackson.
I think maybe the motion should be that we look at any of the intersections along some of those roads, because we've had complaints at Cedar Haven and Forsters Falls Road before, and that may need a solar one, similar to what is at Beachburg and Westmeath Road, because of the different lineup now of the intersection, because it comes out and there's no electricity that goes close by. So it would be more expensive, but I think any recommendations for any of them should be done, and I don't know how you can word that, Rob, to include all areas where we feel that, or they feel that there should be an intersection due to sight lines or due to darkness or due to accidents. Like if they can get information on accidents. I know the other night there was almost an accident. However, I think the guy was a little drunk right at Cedar Haven Road and almost hit my son, so I wasn't too impressed to hear that. He was in the turning lane to turn on to Cedar Haven from Forsters Falls, coming from Cobden. This guy was coming from Forsters Falls down, and obviously was speeding, lost control, was drifting around the corner, just missed my son, and ended up catapulting over the driveway of the not the Pentecostal church, but the Jehovah Witness Church Road, and landing in the ditch. And he was fine, and he was very belligerent when he was checked upon. Anyways, the police were called, and the police were there when my other son came around the corner. So it was nice to see that they responded in a fashion, and I hope that whoever it was will be charged, because there's several issues there. I think when people are used to a road and the intersection is changed, I think the county should look, or we should look, at putting in a light illumination at those corners, even though it has been several years that intersection has been changed. As we all know, we quickly forget. And of course, the speed limit there has changed too. So the more you can light up these areas, the better it is for everybody involved.
And just on the councillor's point, it does say any other priority intersection, so the minutes will reflect Cedar Haven and then any kind of accident-related one. So if there's any one that people want us to look at, we'll do that. And I should just point out that if you look at the budget, like the LED cost in Beachburg is now half, like a strong half of Cobden. So the LED streetlight project will result in operational savings. So if we can deal with some safety kind of illumination issues at the same time, then Lane would include that as part of the evaluation and processes in terms of dark zones and stuff of that nature.
Okay, I have two. Anderson Drive, from Revergear's driveway up to Little Street. There's a lot more people walking now, and whenever we take our traffic signal down, it's 7:47. So I notice a lot of people now walking after dark are wearing construction jackets so they can be seen. So it's just a matter of time before something happens. And the other one is at the LCBO corner. There's street lights on either side, but now with the LED lights, the one side is dark. So people trying to cross there at nighttime, you can't see them. So there should be another light there. So, and that's for the walking people, including myself. Councillor Reeve-Regier.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, Councillor McLaughlin might remember this, or maybe it was longer than that, time gets away on us. But there was a study done with the county, and as a result of that, they were not in favor of, because they did look at those intersections, and it was not at that time. Now, not saying we can certainly look at it again, and I think we definitely have to do that. I was thinking too, like, they did the solar at the intersection of Westmeath Road and Beachburg Road, and it has proven to be very successful, and perhaps that's something we can look at as well. I don't know what the costing is of that, but I'm sure working with the county, we can take a look at some of those prices too. That, you know, I'm sure they have statistics on accidents and what has happened since then. So, yeah, it's a great. Yeah, it would be very good to do that. I agree. The more intersections are illuminated, the better. I agree 100%.
Yep, I agree too. Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, and you're absolutely correct. I thought, Rob, and I don't know, were we not working on a policy for lighting? I remember absolutely what Councillor Regier spoke about. I remember that, and I thought we were trying to, because the whole problem is going to be that if we decide we're going to start this, get ready for the request, because everybody's going to want their light at the intersection of their road, and their road is always the darkest.
Yes.
So just be ready. So I think
it's like being
before
plowed
we
first.
start this, maybe we need to look at trying to develop a policy, and if it follows into our criteria, that's fine. But if it doesn't, because it's just going to be mind-boggling, the amount of requests. We all know that, and Councillor Jackson is correct. I don't know how many times we've tried to talk the county into putting a light at Cedar Haven Road, and it's got a bad curve in it as well. So I don't know their exact criteria they have, but they do have a criteria that if it meets, then that's fine. So I think that's a first step. I totally agree with everybody around this table that we need to look at, but putting up lights and the more intersections we can do, the better. But there's also a cost factor, and the amount of requests are going to be phenomenal.
So if you recall on the Beachburg process, our technical advisors were Hal Johnson and Bernie Tracy, and they did some great volunteer work in deciding where to put lights. In this case, we're looking at getting some expertise on the right illumination at the right spots, including intersections, so there'll be a technical review. There's likely, and there are not a lot of groups that can actually do that work, and then the actual work will be tendered out. So as part of that technical evaluation, I think some of that will be clarified, where the dark spots are, where the busy intersections are, what the options are, if there's no electricity, if it's 2 county roads, all that fun stuff. And that may result, what will likely happen is, as part of that project, we'll sort that out, and then hopefully have a policy with a technical guidance on future ones. But as we go and do this project and send it out, what we're hoping to do is deal with all the low-hanging fruit and make sure we're getting the right voltage at the right corners and that kind of stuff, to the mayor's point where there's some dark spots. So they'll do that technical review, and then when we'll tender out, we should get it right, but then set up, to your point, have a policy for any ones that we don't get to, that don't meet a standard. So that'll be part of the process and noted as well.
Okay. Councillor Nicholson.
Thanks, Rob, for bringing clarification to that. And I appreciate everybody's comments. I think it's an area that we want to look into. I acknowledge Councillor McLaughlin's, the money pot is not limitless. We can't put a light everywhere. We will be forced to make some tough decisions. It may not agree with county, and that's okay. If we think it's important for our community, I think that we spend money on it. I think we need to take an active look in it and make sure that we're making it safe. And that's the key thing. So, thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay. No other questions? Ask for a vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 7.4, landfill fees. Therefore, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Whitewater Region direct the Treasurer / Deputy CAO and Manager of Public Works to prepare a report on landfill fees for the consideration by Council in March 2021. Motion and a seconder. Seconder, Councillor Olmsted. No, Councillor Olmsted, sorry. And this goes to Councillor Mackay.
I know that they're going to have to, the landfill's getting full. I know we have to put the prices up, but it was kind of a shock to everybody that they went up like 100%. It's always a sticker shock when you walk in. We should have sent, I think we should have sent paper around to people and saying, listen, we're going to increase this by 33% over the next 3 years or whatever. But just to throw it at people. And then I was talking to Steve, and he was saying what they're doing is measuring the size of the truck. So if you have only a front end of your truck full of stuff, you still have to pay for the whole truckload. You're paying for square footage of air. And since we can't afford a scales, I know they're quite a bit of money, I think we should revive that and just climb in the truck and measure that if you have to. But nothing drives, there's more people came to my house. I had to use 2 magic words on a few of them. And they were just belligerent. And I don't blame them. And I don't know how I let it happen, because I should have saw it. Zoom meetings are very confusing. So
in some cases.
I missed it. It must be like Stephen Harper, stick it in a multi-bill. Anyways, I think we should, the price is too high all at once. You even, now it'll discourage people from bringing stuff in from other townships. But farmers' plastic, you have plastic, it doesn't weigh anything. And if we could recycle it, that'd be better. But you have a lot of plastic in farming. Every bale's wrapped in plastic. Every big bag of corn is in plastic, heavy plastic, which should be reused. It's good stuff. And I don't know why it isn't.
So we made sure this was on because Sean and Lena and Steve are working on that report. I should just clarify that there was a flyer in December being circulated for the month to users, so it's not that we didn't provide any notice. And they can have the option to measure not just the type of vehicle. So I think it'll be important for Sean and Lane to provide just some background, reiterate the cost comparisons, the other stuff. It might be worthwhile to get weight scales for a variety of reasons of knowing how much residential garbage is picked up and brought to the landfill. So they'll provide that background, and March is next meeting, so they're working on that report. So we'll bring that forward, and then council can provide some direction on any adjustments to the fees if so needed.
Okay, Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thanks. I did get also some feedback at Home Depot, so lots of information. And I know that some of the commercial operators said, well, you're making it so that I'm just going to go to a different landfill. And inside I kind of hesitated and said, oh, well, I think that's kind of good, isn't it? But, so yes, I'm hearing both sides of it. And I'd like to get some feedback from staff on it, just like Davis said. I would be curious from a financial perspective, this is me putting my numbers on, is probably Councillor Olmsted will love to hear me talk about numbers. But if the landfill costs so much to operate it, how much of it are we charging back to users? And how much are we eating, everybody is paying as a taxpayer in our tax base? I just make sure that it's proportionally what we want it to represent. And it's not overly too hard on one side or the other. So I'd be curious if staff could provide some context in that perspective. Thank you.
Councillor McLaughlin, I believe, was first.
Okay, I'll allude, and I agree with Councillor Mackay, because back in 2003, you were paying the same price. Now, everything has gone up, and nobody did any increases, and all of a sudden we look at it and go, whoa. Now, if you took that over from 2003 to 2020, what's the increase per year? It's not that much. But the problem is, like you say, it's just one big, and my problem is, and I also remember that when this council sat and we had to increase the water rates. And I think we doubled them, did we not? They're very close, and all I can remember hearing is, well, that's because old council didn't increase. And it's true. I remember, and I spoke many times about our former mayor, Mayor LeBeau at that time, and he said, you know, if we don't increase every year, then we're all of a sudden we're into one big increase. And that's where the problem is. I can agree and I understand and I hear the complaints, but if you take it over the 20 years, it's not a whole lot of increase. And my biggest worry is it's filling up and it's filling up fast. And there's only one way to stop the filling fast. And I think everybody knows that one. But I'll stop at that because I'll wait for the comments that are going to come. But it's true. The problem is there hasn't been any increases.
Okay, Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, I'd like to change the motion to include small business owners as well in the verbiage. No, in all seriousness, as Councillor Mackay said, I was inundated at my business for the first time in 6 years of any issue. This is the issue that really fired people up. And I think it was a kind of a twofold issue. One was a lot of them did bring up the fact that there's a fee coming. I don't think it's been charged yet, the $156 for landfill and recycling. That fee, I believe, is coming in July. That one-time fee, annual fee.
No, so that's the fee we've been charging for 2 years for curbside pickup.
But it's a one-time fee per year now, is it not?
So it's a one-time fee for curbside pickup, unlimited recycling, 2 bags of garbage.
Right. Yes.
So they've been paying that. This is for the landfill fee.
Right. So I think that's where some of the confusion comes in, is that people were thinking that okay, that's a fee on top of whatever that fee had never existed before, right? So it's a new fee, and then they go to the landfill early part of the year, and then they see this charge. I don't know, before it may have been 10 or 20, whatever it was for a half-ton load, and all of a sudden it's $90. And so my biggest concern is, I had a number of them tell me, and one gentleman in particular sticks out because he had a wagon load, so obviously a farmer, and it was from a renovation that he was doing. I don't know if it was on a barn or if it's a house that he had, but he was just going to go home and burn it and then bury it in his yard somewhere. And it looked like a bunch of it was bricks and stuff, that he was just going to bury it on his own site. So that was my biggest concern, to say, okay, how many people are now just going to revert back to just starting to burn garbage on the property? So I committed to that gentleman that I would do everything in my power to at least come back and look at it and get a good review on it on council. Because if it was something, and I do agree that I do remember a letter going out to, so my wife read it to me, I believe, in one of the tax bills or the water sewer bill or something, that there was something there about fees. So I don't think it was something that perhaps staff didn't then communicate out. But anyway, all I have to say, I agree with Councillor Mackay's motion. Thank you.
River Gear.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to add on to that, one of the farmers was my husband, so he wasn't a happy camper either. But I definitely agree with Councillor Mackay here as well. And I think what we really have to be mindful of is, my concern is what's going to end up in our ditches. We already have those irresponsible people that will dump anywhere, and we deal with that. But I'm concerned is, if these prices are so high, is that going to increase? Because people just need to get rid of it and can't afford it, for one thing maybe, or for whatever reason. I'm concerned our ditches could fill up.
In some cases, it is a continued education. The whole idea of having curbside pickup was that people put their garbage in, they recycle out, instead of going to the dump every Saturday. So what they're doing is they're throwing their 2 bags of garbage in the half-ton truck and whatever else they can scavenge up from the time they leave their driveway till the time they get to the dump, whether it be neighbors or whatever, and they're coming to the dump. So in probably 40% of the cases, they should have put their stuff out at the curb and they didn't need to go to the landfill. And now that we've put the price up, now everybody's complaining. And rightfully so. Nobody likes a 35% increase or whatever the percentage was. We need more education, but it will be interesting to see what the staff come up with for a recommendation and or report. So, did somebody have their hand up? Councillor Jackson?
I think part of the reason why it went up is that a report was done to determine the cost of running the landfill, and it included the revenue that was going to be received from the amount, that one-time fee for taxation that went for recycling and garbage pickup, that we were already paying for. And previously we were subsidizing through our taxes because everybody wasn't using them, buying the yellow bags. So they were subsidizing it before. So we could very well reduce the prices, but then your taxes are going to have to go up because it costs the same to maintain that facility, whether or not their user, and I emphasis user, is going to pay for their items that they are bringing individually, or is everybody else going to have to offset the costs for them to use it through their taxes? So it's a user fee based, and that's why, and it was also to discourage, my belief was to discourage people from doing exactly what you said, loading up their 2 bags of garbage, because that's what they used to do, and it was kind of a flat fee of $10 if you went with a half-ton load, and everybody was happy whether there was 2 bags or 10 bags in there, and a bunch of other stuff, it was $10. Well, now they're actually charging what they should have been charging all along, and that is part of the problem. I don't know. I think if Ivan brings not Ivan, Lane and Steve bring a report back, I mean, they're going to have to recommend it, and everybody needs to be aware of the fact that we have not set our tax rates yet. Yes, we have passed our budget, but that budget can be changed up until the point that we set our tax rates. So you could offset it by increasing the tax levy, which therefore is going to increase the taxes. But I don't know that it's fair for others to pay for somebody that's using it directly, if that's the cost. Certainly, the landfill does not make money in no way, shape, or form, and it's not expected to make money. And I would encourage that if anybody did see anybody burning garbage, that they phone the fire department immediately, and those people get charged. I have no tolerance for burning garbage, and I would hope that nobody else does either. But I see their ways, and 50 years ago it might have been the thing to do, but it's certainly not the thing to do now.
I agree. Councillor Nicholson, I think you had your hand up next.
I just to reiterate, Councillor Jackson, it costs X dollars. Call it, if it's $100,000 to run the landfill, and I'm not talking about curbside pickup, if it's $100,000 to run the landfill, either every taxpayer is paying for it on their tax bill and it's free for anybody to use it, or it's some kind of split between the users that use it and the taxpayers as a whole. So whether we try to get half of it recovered at the gate and the other half off the tax roll, or we completely fund it, we've got to find that middle ground. We have to, try to keep people putting the right garbage in it, like the farmers and that kind of thing, and maximizing curbside, and trying to minimize it for the taxpayers that don't use the garbage. They only use curbside. Why do they want to invest money in the landfill for other people to use it? It's a balancing act. Staff is going to have a challenge on this one, and I look forward to getting it back.
Okay, Councillor Mackay.
One guy phoned me and he said he was pretty upset about the price. And And then he told me that he had 3 houses, but he takes it all to the dump. But he's a farmer, so he has lots of other garbage. But I'm saying, well, just put the 6 bags in along the road. That cuts back on your cost. But he wasn't happy about the price, I know we have to put it up, I agree. But it's just such a shock. It's like 100%. You can't just, here, this loaf of bread is $2, now it's $18. You know, it's just not, you get surprised, whoa. And nobody knew about this stroll. I felt sorry for Steve. And he can't use the magic words.
Not a fun day at work, no.
Yeah. So we'll bring back a fulsome report. I should say Lane had weight scales as a capital item this year that I didn't bring, that I suggested. That was not the year to bring to council. Just quick numbers, the landfill costs $300,000 and the tipping fees only bring in $157. So
At today's current price?
based on my quick review of the budget document, $294, $365 landfill Ross, and $157 is what we actually bring in revenue. So it's only pays for half of itself.
And that 156 for recycle and garbage at the curbside is not reflective in this because it goes to the contractor.
The $156 only pays for the curbside pickup fees and the processing fees for the recycling. So we don't even charge ourselves for, the landfill itself doesn't charge back for the garbage we pick up at curbside. So in the case of Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery Centre, there's tipping fees that the municipalities pay. So we don't even go there. But so it's complex. We'll provide you the background. It'll be as much about the operations as it will be about the finance. So it'll be a team approach with Sean, Lane, and Steve.
Okay. Councillor Olmsted.
Sorry, and just one last comment about users. I still highly suspect that more than just Whitewater residents are using our landfill. So to Councillor Nicholson's, you don't think I'm right or I'm wrong?
Per our certificate of approval, we're not allowed to accept waste that's not coming from Whitewater region. So, but that's.
Yeah, I'd like staff's view on, do they think, I think most of them know a lot of our residents, especially a couple that are there full time. But to Councillor Nicholson's remarks, the guys, these commercial guys saying they're just going to take it somewhere else. So I'd really like to investigate that a little bit further. If waste providers are picking up in other regions and they're not just stopping at the end of Whitewater Road, they have a route. They're going to keep going down that route. I'd just like to make sure that we're getting Whitewater garbage.
Okay, so that brings up a question then. Do we, as a service provider and having the key to the gate, have the right to stop anyone from dumping on our property?
Yeah, there was a rumor, somebody told our landfill operator that he could not stop people, but our approval for that landfill is waste originating from Whitewater region. So as an example, we changed the keys to the landfill about a year ago.
Not a bad idea.
Where people had unfettered access to the landfill. So the bottom line is we have to get a better sense of that. And I think that to be honest, what was the driver of the change was the comparator. We basically brought ourselves up to what every other municipal landfill was charging generally. But the report will talk about that, including the certificate of the approval, the environmental approval, and what we can and can't accept.
Is there such a thing as a policy, perhaps a neighboring township may have, of how to regulate and proceed with this particular item? Should we need a policy?
I think it's your approval guides your operations, so it's just how we fine tune going forward our operations. I had a conversation with a gentleman who said I ripped a whole kitchen out and they charged me $90. They used to charge me $30, and I said for a whole kitchen, $90, and I know I'm not trying to attack business, but that cost gets borne by the owner who has a contractor. So I think a report that provides some clarity would be helpful, and if there's any adjustments, then you can do it at that time.
Okay, but that brings up another point then too. You have contractors Monday to Friday that may be coming to the dump on Wednesday and or Saturday, and they could be working for me, but yet they don't have my card to get into the dump, but we're not stopping them because they're
So it's an operational point.
yeah,
So I think
they're
that,
from outside the township, but we don't know if they're dumping my garbage. They could be dumping somebody else's.
So those are I think, compliance-related operational issues that I think will form part of that report. But I think over one of your strategic items in the strat plan under environment is the effective operation of that landfill, making sure it's open so it's not at capacity because it'll save you a ton of money. So all that forms part of it. So you'll get some of that in this report, but you'll get other reports going forward.
Yeah, it's just one of them things that nobody wants to dive into. Any other questions? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Now, are we going to 8 at this time?
Yeah, if we can do 8, 9, and 11.
Can we put a notice forward today?
Yeah.
I was talking to the Reeve about this one. Is it possible if I can?
Yeah, go for it. I'll let you go for it. Sure.
I'll put it out and then we'll figure out which way to,
Yeah.
So this would be a notice of motion?
yeah.
Okay.
Or it may be reconfigured.
Is it number 9.3?
No, it hasn't been brought forward yet, so it.
No, I want to make a notice that we can bring it forward.
But we don't
Yeah.
have it on the agenda, notice of motion at this time. And something he wants to bring up is not further on the agenda.
But is it related to 9.3, the resolution from the city of St. Catharines?
No.
No,
Okay.
No. But
totally different.
I thought in notice of motion, you could provide a notice for a future motion. Okay, good. No, I just want to make sure I'm doing it right. The County of Renfrew Seniors Housing Strategy, I was hoping that we could have a discussion about that in some more detail. And I don't know if it requires a notice of motion from me, or we could have the Reeve put it on as an agenda point and facilitate its discussion then. I throw it out at you, Rob, as to how best to approach that.
Carmen and I will figure it out in terms of timing and how to put it on with the two of you.
Oh, that's it.
Okay. 8.1, regular minutes. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region adopt the regular minutes of February 3, 2021. Motion and seconder, please. Councillor Olmsted and Councillor Jackson. All in favor? Carried, thank you. 8.2, closed session minutes. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve the closed session minutes of February 3, 2021, understanding that they remain confidential. Motion and seconder, please. Councillor Jackson, Councillor Mackay. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Correspondence, 9.1, Ontario Winter Games, County of Renfrew. Number 9.2, Woodpile Replacement Hydro. 9.3, Universal Paid Sick Days. 9.4, Home-Based Food Business. Do we want to open this up to questions, or are we just correspondence and moving on? Question? Councillor Nicholson.
With respect to item number 9.3, I'd like to put a motion forward that we consider a resolution in support of the St. Catharines motion.
And that is for universal paid sick days. Was it 9 days? Is that what it was? Okay, so we would be just sending back correspondence saying we're in favor of?
Yeah, assuming that after discussion, or if I get a seconder.
Yeah, I would second that.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Reeve Regier, that we approve 9.3, or recommend approval, sorry. So we open it up to questions. Seeing none, all in favor of motion? Motions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, motion's carried. Anything else on 9.1? Did you want to comment on winter games, Reeve Regier?
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, I had already touched base on it, and I just wanted to advise that it looks like the Cobden Astrolabe Arena will be hopefully hosting the Ringette. So that's very exciting. And again, we can't emphasize enough how much this is going to bring into the county of Renfrew and all of our municipalities, because it's a huge, it's going to be a huge economic driver, especially after the pandemic's hopefully over and things are settling down. It's going to be a great thing. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that and it's going to be hosted over 2 weekends, and I think from a Thursday to a Sunday, if I'm not mistaken.
Is
I
that
wouldn't
it?
have the.
Yeah. It's
4
4 days. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, that, I just wanted
All
to
right,
put
thank
that.
you.
Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
I guess I just don't really understand the funding aspects of it. I know the county applied. I don't know who was consulted with arenas and facilities and what the municipalities are going to have to upfront load? Like, what is going to be the cost for Whitewater Region to allow them to host it here? Are they going to get the revenues for the ice surface rentals, etc.? That I don't quite understand, and it was never really expressed anywhere that I could see.
Yeah.
If I might, there's just been very high-level preliminary conversations. Our understanding is, while they would like free time, that minor rates would apply, and because they're children, so the likelihood is any use in Cobden would be charged the minor rate, which is just a booking like any other. But as some of that detail gets finalized through, now that they got the bid, I asked Jordan to prepare a report, but there's not much more than what's been put out there. So hopefully over the next little while, as the committee does its work, we can bring that forward. But our understanding at this point is that any ice time would be we could charge the minor rate, as what we know as of now.
So I'm assuming then that there is a lead at Renfrew County right now in charge of this?
So right now, Chair Peter Emo is the chair of it, and the committee is formed, and it's just starting. And as CAO mentioned, it's at high level right now. Their next step right now is to hire I forget what the title is, but it will be like a head coordinator. Thank you. Yeah. So that's kind of where it's at. It's at a very high level right now. So
Because, I mean, we have to block out that ice time, right? So
yeah,
that's the first priority, and then after that, everything should fall into place, I would think. But yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
monetarily, it remains to be seen, has to be discussed, right? There's got to be money to award the county to do this, so anyway.
I believe they received $1 million of funding from the province, so there is funding received. But Jordan will prepare a detailed report once we know more.
Yep, okay. Any other questions on that matter? Seeing none? All in favor? Nope. There wasn't a motion. Just correspondence.
Just to accept.
Councillor Nicholson?
Sorry, I apologize, but I missed that detail about the second paragraph there, about how they're trying to do reduction of venue rates, in-kind support and donations. It just made me lead, in terms of accommodations and stuff, is there any way for us to make bids for our businesses to take an active role in this? Or has it already been coordinated with larger centers?
Just to reiterate the Reeves point, it's preliminary. They have a committee.
Okay.
They're hiring a coordinator.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but where they would be housed and all that kind of stuff. So
I
I
just-
think maybe when it comes to the point, maybe the county can come and make a presentation, which I'm sure they'll do the rounds.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, like, Whitewater Inn, I mean, maybe we can't take the ringette team, but we could bring in, I don't know, some other,
A coach?
a group of coaches. It's referees, who knows? But I just don't want to get left out just because we're smaller. Thank you.
Okay, agreed. Seeing no other questions, we'll move on to item 10.
Can we jump to 11?
Oh, we'll jump to 11? Sure. 11.1, bylaws. Recommendation be it resolved that the bylaws listed on February 17th, 2021 agenda be taken as read and passed. Motion and a seconder, please. Revergier and Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Now we go back to 10.1.
I'm just wondering, sorry if I may interrupt. In 15 minutes, we're over our 3 hours, so do we want to do, my guess is we probably won't wrap up in 15 minutes, so do we want to extend now? Yeah, okay. So can we do a motion to extend beyond? Yeah.
Motion to extend. So we need a firster and a seconder.
Yes,
Councillor
please.
Nicholson and Councillor Mackay. All in favor? All against? Okay, it's carried. Okay. 10.1, closed session. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region move into closed session at 7:26 p.m. as permitted under Section 9 of the procedural bylaw, with staff participating in the meeting to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, bracket industrial park, additional negotiations, bracket, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals, bracket legal claims, update, bracket, and personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, bracket, appointment of certain officials, bracket. Motion and a seconder, please.
Just one correction, just because we're talking about a lease potential, not a sale, that the first one, it'll change to the exemption regarding negotiations of a plan or position. So we'll just note that if that's okay.
Okay, note taken. Change in direction. Motion and a seconder for closed? Did we go that far yet? No, we didn't. Did I do motion and seconder? Sorry. Okay, Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Mackay. We're now in closed.